Start. Cool. Okay, I'll start. Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. We're glad you can join us for the 9.0 release. We hope everyone is also having a good Saturday or Sunday, maybe, depending on where your time zone is. I'm Deuce. I'm the lead game design member of the team. I help oversee a lot of the concepts, balancing, that sort of stuff, and yeah. I'm going to go by order of how it shows. Devin, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello. I am, of course, as you said, Devon. I am the most recent graphics artist addition to the team, and I have been the one to make all the terrain chunk models for this update, at least. Yes. Good.
Cool. Next we have Harlinen.
Yes, hello, I'm Hyrlainen. I'm the lead programmer and I do most of the programming and basically all of reviewing what code goes into the game. Among other things, I did the programming side of the terrain chunk system.
Awesome. And then finally we have Rathlos. He's on mute now, but I know his mic works.
Yeah. Hi, I'm a relatively new addition to the game design team. So for this update in particular, I've expanded the auto evo a bit. If you see the patch notes related to endosymbiosis and a little addition to the chemoreceptor, that's me. And what we're working now on also is actually preparing the design for the next stage.
Awesome. And then
Just
we have
realized nobody pinged everyone that we are on live stream, so we don't have many viewers
that'd be
right
useful.
now, so just piss off everyone. Oh.
Okay, there we go. We won't go through introductions again. They can look back if they want.
They can
But
watch the board if they missed it. We
yeah.
should hopefully get a few more concurrent viewers.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I think we can start discussing what the 0.9.0 release was.
Yep, absolutely. Let me just pull up the notes just to make sure I have everything on reference. And if anyone wants to, when I'm going through this, if anyone wants to bring up something that I might have missed, feel free to cut in. But I think the biggest things in this update involve the micro-terrain, of course, some graphical improvements, balancing changes, and the new saving system, which we spent a lot of time on. Obviously, the most eye-catching piece, the terrain. Devin has worked really hard recently, creating
Indeed.
a whole lot of different minerals for terrain, and we now have a feature which allows spawning of different non-motile chunks into the environment, which are huge. So they allow to break up the sort of monotony of a lot of the environments that was present there before. Devin, if you want to add anything to it, you can.
No, I think the only thing I'd say is, of course, just to note to anyone listening, all the chunks you see in this update, they aren't the final set. There's going to be more that are going to be made. So it's going to be a slow burner sort of feature. So more chunks be added next update, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Also, we'll note along that the arrangement of chunks, it's not finalized. There might be more unique shapes in the future. There probably will be when I get to it. We get to creating that sort of stuff. But for now, we have a great diversity of chunks in, and we have them across numerous patches. So we hope you guys enjoy the initial implemented terrain. Moving forward, related to our graphics improvements. Obviously, the chunks, they offer a lot of or I should say terrain to be more specific. The terrain adds a lot more visual richness to the environment, but beyond that, we had a lot of great improvements on our current system. The trail effect itself has been altered to be more resembling of a fluid and to be more, I guess, consistent and streamlined as opposed to being more jagged, how it was before. And beyond just the trail effect, we have Bligger, one of our volunteer programmers, spent a lot of time ensuring that who just joined? Oh, User Lens just joined. He's one of our theory members. If you want to introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, I'm User Lens. As just mentioned, I'm one of the theory devs. I'm also the one that's been putting some effort into loading screen stuff, so hopefully we'll have some more stuff prepared for that next time around.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Glad you can join us.
I am also glad.
Yeah, going back to our discussion of the update, one of our volunteer programmers also spent a lot of time making sure that particles could have a lot of different depth to them. So that helps to increase the sort of feeling of being immersed in a giant, instead of just being a flat 2D plane, it's a lot more of a more 3D, atmospheric and immersive environment that your cells are inhabiting in. And along with that, ambient reflections have been strengthened and made to be more dynamic to each patch, which has a very nice kind of polishing effect on a lot of the items in the scene. Whereas before, certain objects might have stuck out a bit in terms of being inconsistent lighting and all that sort of stuff. Now it's a lot more immersed in what is going on in the environment itself. So a lot of great stuff, and as someone who always kind of liked graphics improvements, it was very exciting to see a lot of that stuff. Next on, if no one else has anything to add to the graphics tweaks, we have a lot of different bouncing and metabolism and polish changes. A lot of it is focused on, this is something I was pretty involved in. A lot of it was focused on metabolisms themselves, iron respiration, aerobic respiration, sulfur, a bit of work on photosynthesis. But overall, things are a bit more tight and requiring a lot more, or like a bit more consideration, strategy, and decision making before creating specific builds. I think the two most immediately noticeable changes involve sulfur and sulfide, I should say, which is now damaging upon contact if you don't have a chemosynthesizing part, and the way that oxygen behaves now, where buildup is a lot slower now, so it tends to create a more drawn out and intentional series of evolutions around when oxygenation begins. Bouncing is a continuous process. We will respond to feedback and tweak certain things based off of the recent changes. For example, the environmental events might need some tweaking to be more consistent with the new oxygen changes. But overall, we hope that's a step up, and we hope that we receive good feedback on that, see where we might have hit stuff and where we might have missed this stuff, and then tweak from there. Also, related to gameplay polishing, Auto Evo has been worked on a good amount. I don't know if Rathlos wants to, since Rathlos was the one pretty involved with that, I don't know if they want to go into depth with that. Okay. They're not turning off their mic, so. But overall, I think the two big things is that chemoreceptors and enzymes, I believe, are now actively considered by Auto Evo, along with further effort to include more parts in Auto Evo, including potentially some upgrades.
Yes, indeed. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Indeed, the chemoreceptors are now pretty much fully in, and now as well the toxin upgrades are currently being worked on to also be implemented. And after that, working through everything else that's not fully implemented into the Auto Evo yet, which means once that happens, the game will reward you for placing these parts finally, and the AI cells will also end up evolving them. And
Yep.
I'm not sure if you fully mentioned already, but indeed now, essentially, the auto evo system now creates a little spot for any species undergoing endosymbiosis with you, which means they will probably not go extinct anymore, which should make that future a lot more easy to use.
Absolutely, yeah. The endosymbiosis. That was a consistent sort of gripe a lot of people had with the system, where the thing they would be trying to create into an organism would just disappear after a while. So that was something that was very good to see in game. It makes one of the more unique parts of our game actually sustainable. So there's been great work for Auto Evo this time around. Beyond that, I think that's a good write-off of the gameplay-related changes and balancing. There's more depth to it, but I think that's better saved for notes. Another big focus of this upgrade cycle includes work on our saving system, which essentially had to be built up from scratch, and was part of why we had a week delay for this release cycle. Higher Lenin would be better to describe what's going on there, but overall we are in a better state with that system for the rest of Thrive's development, which will make development much easier long term. So
Yeah, actually it was 2 weeks delay. I corrected that for the dev blog, and also I wrote an extra paragraph there trying to explain the reasoning, but basically the old JSON-based system was very, very difficult to use because we had to have multiple special cases and how stuff was actually put into the save and loaded, and it was such a mess that whenever anyone needed to save anything new, they just hoped that it just worked, and if it didn't, then they would either give up or I had to try to do it. So with the new system, the hope is that it's actually simple enough to use that all programmers will be able to make features that need saving data.
Yeah, saving, it's a cornerstone of any video game. So having that be accessible and allowing other developers the opportunity to get into that without needing a real deep dive of everything and how it was set up would be really useful. As a, beyond just the fundamentals, this also has two benefits. One, saving works in the multicellular stage editor now, and two, autosaving is enabled for prototypes that support saving. So, further length playthroughs will now have the ability to save more intentionally and more easily. Unfortunately, prior saves do not work now, so everyone will need to sort of start from a clean state. But overall, I think this puts us in a great spot for the rest of development.
Yeah, and it's been like,
go ahead.
I think 2 years since we last broke save compatibility, because I've been pretty adamant that we do not break it all the time. So I think we should be forgiven this one time when we break save compatibility, as we've kept it for like a few years since the last breakage.
Yeah, I think we'll be forgiven. Beyond that, we've had some. Oh, the plant customization editor. It's crazy that slips past our minds, but the plant statistics panel has been improved a lot, allowing you to have greater control over the amount of compounds and different environmental factors in your planet, as well as also having a better heads-up display for editing your planet beforehand, so that players understand what their new world will look like. There's been some, we updated to Godot 4.5. There's been updates to different, simplifying it, different systems, which hopefully slightly improve some of the simulation efficiencies. They don't have a huge effect, but they do help somewhat with that. So, along with a bit more work on tutorials, the refactoring of the mutation point calculation system. Hydrogen sulfide is more responsive to environmental factors now, and yeah, overall, that's the gist of it. A full list of changes will be available for the release notes, or is available for our release notes on GitHub, but beyond that, those are the major notes we had. Unless anyone else has something they want to bring up for this release cycle. Okay. Now, one thing I wanted to say before the stream, or wanted to ask before the stream, but do you think it would be worthwhile to discuss a bit, the remainder of the markup stage and the beginning of the multi-server stage here in this live stream? Because I saw some, buzz around that on the forums and Discord, so maybe briefly addressing it would be worthwhile.
Well, usually we do cover the what's planned for the next release, because someone will.
You're right. Yeah.
Like there's almost 100% chance that someone has asked in the questions thread that what's in the next release. So we might as well talk about that now.
Yeah, absolutely. I can begin discussing, the rest of the markup stage, how that looks. I think it's as hard as it is to wrap our heads around. It's no secret that we're approaching the end of, or approaching feature completion of the markup stage, and rapidly approaching official development on the multi-server stage. And we still feel very confident that we can reach that by the end of this year. Now, to clarify, future completion doesn't mean that, pencils down for the markup stage is all set in stone. There probably will be, we have a lot of volunteers who like to optimize, different things existing in the game. So there might be more energy for that from the volunteers. But the main focus of the team and the main focus of our full-time programmer, Harleinen, will be on future stages from this point on. So, the markup stage isn't done and dusted in terms of being set, but we feel satisfied with what it is now, to the point where we accept future improvements to be driven by volunteers, and we accept that we can move to the future stage and really have it synergize with, itself and the prior stage. For the remainder of items for the markup stage, our roadmap is still available for anyone who wants to see what we anticipate to be developed in the future. But a lot of the major items have been tackled the past few release cycles, which is very good news. And that's not to say that there are no, there won't be major shakeups to how the markup stage is at this point with future development. But there might be some cool little polishing areas we do to make different areas of the game more strong. But overall, we do feel confident that we can get the remainder of what's on the roadmap done by the end of this year. So, that's great news for the community as a whole, I think, and for the history of this project. We are approaching the completion of our first stage after, I want to say like 4 years of more dedicated development and maybe 15 years or so of larger scheming and dreaming and conceptualization and looser development. So, congrats to everyone, and we really appreciate everyone in the community for sticking with us up to this point. I don't know if anyone else has something to add after that. I kind of ranted for a while, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there isn't that much left of the micro roadmap, so I think a good strategy would be that we'll make a couple, like just release small releases, then so that we can polish things up to have the big 1.0 announcement be a release with, well, not that much new stuff, but it should be like more bug-free and more balanced than the usual releases. So
yeah,
I think we might have a couple of releases in like 2 to 3 week increments from now until until the microbe stage is done.
Yep. So, look forward to a pretty hectic holiday season for the community members of Thrive. Okay. I think with that settled, and if no one else has anything to add, we can move on to the usual schedule of answering questions, taking questions from the chat, and overall discussing things with Thrive. By the way, if anyone is able to record questions they see in the chat, just so we have, we can track them and answer them at some points. We usually answer 2 forum questions and then move on to answering a couple of chat questions. So if anyone can do that here in this chat room, that'd be very useful. Appreciate it. Thank you, Drusilens. Okay, should we begin with the priority question? I know we got one.
Yeah, we got the one usual priority question asker.
Oh yeah. Of course. Okay. Okay, I can see it. So this question is from Doom Lightning, one of our usual and one of our power posters from the community forums. I'll say that, and one of our Patreon donators. So we really appreciate their contributions and their attention they give to Thrive.
Also, maybe some other VIP patrons would get activated at some point to take advantage of their chance to ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. You can ask. Yeah, you can have a more direct line to the developers if you Patreon contributor. So consider that if you're able to. Moving on to the questions. They ask, if things don't change, I guess I'll post my questions here as always. 1. It looks like the multi-server stage is on the horizon very soon. How long do you think it will take you to get to the legendary 1.0? Will there be more intermediate versions, or will we skip straight to 1.0.1? We discussed this just now, actually. It'll be probably more incremental updates until 1.0.
I would estimate that we will have at least 0.9.1 and 0.9.2, and then we'll probably jump to 1.0.
Yeah. I think this is... How many weeks until the end of this year? 8 weeks? I'd say within like 7 weeks or so, a lot of these release updates will be going out for the
we have
update.
about 5 to 6 weeks until we need to have the big 1.0 out, and then we can take 1 more week to make a patch release. If we need to patch something once we've done the big 1.0.
Yep.
But
okay,
anyway,
cool.
So we'll only have like 2 or 3 weeks per small release. So yeah, we are very close.
Yeah, it's crazy to say. I keep saying that, but it is crazy to say. 2, right now, the reproductive pathways are budding an egg. Do we have an egg reproductive pathway right now?
I don't really think so.
Egg. Huh. I don't know what egg is.
Well,
I
maybe.
guess it's there.
I know Doom Lightning isn't a native English speaker, so this might be some kind of translation.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, reproductive pathways are basically abstract. I'd like to know if there are any plans to add life cycles in any way, such as metamorphosis, which includes amphibians' partial full life cycles, starfish, ploidy, transition of a life form with 1 set of chromosomes versus 2, and hive growth. Well, I wonder how big of a headache Harlinen got from just reading that. I think there definitely is room for different life phases in Thrive. I think knowing where that'd be, very beneficial and where that would be cool, but kind of, I don't want to say excessive, but not as necessary would be a very important discussion to have. I think with the multi-server stage, there is kind of an easier way to represent that, just because growth is inherently a part of that stage. And me and Rathos have a few discussions on the development forums related to that. But I guess I'll say we don't have anything concrete conceptualized, but I'd say the room for that is mostly in the multi-server stage, I think, and perhaps some areas in the larger macroscopic stages.
Yeah, well, this
Yeah,
is
I think
exactly
as-
why there's a placeholder reproduction method in the multicellular editor. So I think we'll add at least one other type before we call multicellular stage done.
Yeah, I think also like Dale said, we're currently discussing on like the basic plans and design ideas for this. So I think at this point this is very fluid still on
Yeah.
what we will end up with for this.
Yeah. I think, well, obviously Arlenan could, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what might be easier is representing the number of cells that are on you, and what each growth phase is in terms of the number of cells you have in the multicellular stage, than it is to say, completely transform an existing cell into another shape depending on life cycle. So I think we're thinking more merely in terms of that right now, but we'll see what is possible in the future when it gets to that. As to kind of the more, I want to say, complex and future stage, the future stage of Thrive, like in the macroscopic stages. Again, we'll probably have to see, but that would be probably more difficult. Okay. 3. What is the smallest change you've made to the game that would actually be a game changer in your opinion? Does anyone else have something that pops up to their mind? Because I'm thinking right now.
I think this has to be some kind of either a JSON file or data configuration change. Like Deleter fixed the, I think, hopefully I remember the right person, but they fixed the ice chunk despawn animation by changing one line of code specifying the right data. So like some kind of change that, for example, the balancing or something is pretty impactful with just a single line of.
Yeah. The thing that jumped to my mind was, kind of along the lines of JSON files and, more, tweaks and numbers. Tweaking how quickly oxygen accumulates is really, really impactful in the game, because if it accumulates very slowly, the length of the game is increased. But if it accumulates really quickly, then the length of the game is shortened right now. So that was something I really was keeping in mind during the balancing for the oxygen aerobic respiration. And, numbers like that we still need feedback on, but hopefully it's in better shape now than it is back then. Does anyone else have any other things they want to bring up, or? Okay, cool.
Code-wise, I've made 2 changes, so
Oh,
picking
yeah,
between
but
those 2.
doesn't
Well,
have to be
I
your
think-
changes.
Yes. Well, the question asks your changes you've made, but
Oh, maybe your means like the team as a whole,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, it wasn't very easy to make. I guess it's not the easiest thing to make, but there was a big, pre and post passive ammonia and phosphate debate when that happened. And that was a really dramatic change to the way that the game was playing. So it's back in 2023, I think. So I think we got a good sample of changes like that. Okay. Number 4. Not all brains are created equal. For example, octopi with secondary brains and birds versus humans. I'd like to know how your A-type tickling, but I assume they're tackling, with the concept of intelligence in the game. Will it be linear, like in Spore, or will it be a new interaction system? Similar to the idea that just popped up, a system of intelligent tools where it enters the brain like a box cue, and there's limited space in it, and only the development of the brain size or expansion of a ganglia can it contain more space. Something built on top of the current behavioral system. Wow. Okay. So, my immediate thought... yeah, that could be something cool we can cover later, Jerusalem, but I assume... Let's go through the priority questions first, and then we can discuss that, maybe. My immediate response to that as the design team lead is I think that's would be really complicated to have the player keep in mind. Altering the very physiology of, or having a kind of a process-oriented, behavior editor that really relates to the brain. At a baseline, I think we can anticipate that your level of intelligence opens up 1, different behaviors, and 2, different sorts of tools and anatomies. For example, more complex brains allowing more complex muscular structures, since you would have more abilities to control and regulate that sort of stuff with a more advanced brain. For example, octopi and organisms like that, they're soft-bodied, as are, tapeworms, sea cucumbers, starfish, that sort of stuff. But not just because of their neurons, but because of their nervous system in part way, it allows them to have a lot more complex control and interaction with their limbs and their environment as a whole. So, I think at the baseline, the nervous system as a unlocking feature for different features is anticipated. Oh yeah, that could be an avenue of it too. Anyone else have anything to contribute with that one, or?
I think we should first go with a simpler system, and then if
Yeah.
we have resources left over to think about alternative brain structures or implementing a visual programming system for people to have to make their species behavior, we can think of those later. But I think at least that like visual programming thing would filter out a lot of players, so it would need to be totally optional.
Yeah, I agree.
Something else also is like, even if we wanted to have different functions that are in the brain, that would just be, individual things you add to the brain, which ends up making the brain bigger, rather than making the brain bigger to build more things in a complicated system. Thereby flipping the whole thing around. So I would agree. Starting with just having a single type of brain, which is a brain, and then potentially, if it's beneficial, going to variants on the same system.
Yeah, there's so many complicated linkages in these larger structures and larger organisms that I think the safest answer to any sort of feature when it comes to the macroscopic stage is start with something simple and then maybe add on to it as manpower and design needs show up. Okay, I think that's a good enough stopping point for this question. We'll move on to the next one. Number 5, as is known, modern society is built on the past. Coal comes from compressed fossil plants and oil from plankton that sank quickly and was compressed underground. Hypothetically, if and in cases these conditions can be influenced by the player's choices in early stages, can they shape future stages? Not only for living creatures, these are also geographical, such as geological and environmental engineering, like engineered species and that sort of stuff, or environmentally engineering species. That would be very desirable to have in the game, for sure. I think the focus first would be, when we get to the society stage, is making sure these resources exist, and we have kind of like I'd say the baseline understanding of how people interact with resources, what they're used for, if the systems work fine, that sort of stuff. And then once we have that base and we feel like that the gameplay within the stage itself is solid, we start opening up for ways that the prior stages can link up to the newest stage. So, with reference to coal and oil and other sort of organic sources of fuel, non-renewable sources of fuel, first we'd make sure that everything is intentionally designed with that sort of stuff within the stage, and then we open up the possibility of, okay, if for example, if a certain number of organisms died in this area earlier on, then maybe there's more resources there and that sort of stuff. But overall, that is a sort of interaction that I think we'd want to prioritize eventually, just because that would be a unique selling point of Thrive, and that stage of Thrive 4 in comparison to other 4X games. Cool. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to contribute to that one, or all good?
Well,
But only that some very basic things like the existence of coal and oil might not be, like theoretically speaking, so dependent on very specific species traits in the past. So it might end up being that some of these examples are actually much more universally available than you would expect from this question.
yeah, I think we need to have some kind of baseline that the player isn't stuck randomly in the game.
Yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
it's
it
too
would
dynamic.
definitely be pretty cool to discover effects that like earlier species have done.
Yeah, absolutely. In a game focused on evolution, I think even a society stage part of that would involve the prior history of the planet. That'd be a unique selling point for Thrive. So, yeah, overall, good question, good discussion overall. Okay, moving on. 6, are there plans to bring the game to different platforms in the distant future?
Depends on what those platforms are. Theoretically, if
yeah.
we prioritize the controller support, then we might get like some console releases. But it's been like 2 years since I did a few months of effort of putting various controller support stuff, but it's still like only half done with the editors not working well, and there's no action wheel to pick the many abilities that cells have.
Yeah, I think something like that. Our more immediate priority would be securing a larger audience, and then from there seeing if there's a desire to grow into the console stage, because that would be a useful area to open up the game too. But after a certain point, I feel like you just need to build that audience first, and then if the game's popular enough, you start to open up that console for gameplay. It'd be interesting to see Thrive, like how Thrive would work on the Switch, I guess. I imagine the editor might be a bit cool in that version. Okay, and number 7. Icebreaker question: what is your favorite / most heard music genre? Doom Lightning's is classical, electrical, and rock. What's y'all's favorite music genres?
For me,
Good
it's
question.
whatever happens to be playing in the area.
Cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I would usually tend to gravitate towards classical. That's cool. Yeah.
User Lens likes metal. They like to listen to Sabaton. I like soul, and I like primarily mid-late 70s rock right now. That's something I'm kind of exploring right now. I like Bruce Springsteen, so there's that. All right, Lennon, do you have a favorite music genre?
Well, not really, but I guess I'm like whenever people ask like their favorite music, everyone has something really specific. But like I mostly listen to like pop music.
Fair. I also enjoy listening to the Thrive soundtrack, which can be purchased on Steam for small
Yeah,
dollar
we
amount. I forgot the exact amount now.
to advertise. Let me scroll up. I intentionally put this image at the start of the stream. Thrive soundtrack is now on Steam, and if you want to support us being able to make stages after multicellular, then we need your help.
So there you go. If you enjoy the Thrive soundtrack, you can consider purchasing that.
Yeah, there was a really good review actually. I just looked at the link, so I saw that someone posted a new review and they said that, yeah, I like the sound of supporting this game.
That's good. All right, awesome, cool. Should we answer a question or two from the chat? I see Drizzle Lens they typed.
Yeah,
two.
we could answer a few chat questions. I'll swap over to the normal questions right in the meantime.
So, Tabat6321 looks like they asked me specifically. I remember you said on forums about reaching former devs to show them 1.0. So what about inviting Shai? I never understood how to pronounce that. Seal Kant for some interview. I don't know. I remember them being kind of they're the person who made the disturbance, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think they have been contacted in the past, and they've made it quite clear that they don't want anything to do with Thrive. So I don't think we should bother that guy specifically. We should instead, I think some of the older programmers like Mobley, who popped in like 3 years ago, would be much more open to seeing what the game is now.
Yeah, and well, he hasn't disappeared completely, but Untrusted Life, they're pretty available. Other developers we've had, maybe TJ Way would be cool. One of the first few game design leads. But yeah, beyond that, if we have some sort of way to contact other developers, we'll probably try to contact them. And as another question from the chat, Not a Bucket asks, have you considered making it possible to create cells that can contract muscle cells? I think it'd be an interesting feature for the multi-cellular stage. We had myofibril in the game before, right? They can't contract, but
multicellular
muscle cells.
part. But yeah, I mean, it would be very complicated to make cells deform and stuff, so like that would be an extremely difficult feature.
Yeah, it could be the cell deformation and then also deforming the shape of the whole multicellular organism, the way it's built. So that would also be deforming.
Yeah, those are like pretty much, if someone said to me that I need to implement that would be like nightmare difficulty. Like overall, I'd say that's a more complex change than the entire engulfing system in total. and that's a pretty core part of the game. So in terms of how much effort it is to do that one feature and how much it would add to the game, I think it's not worth it at all.
What I'm hearing is we should put it on the roadmap for 1.0.
Yeah, I'll stealthily put it in the macroscopic roadmap so it can be where it belongs.
There we go. As for like, maybe we could implement a part that kind of like, symbolizes some sort of contraction, I guess. But as for the animation itself, that would be pretty difficult to put in, and probably not worth the time sink to work through that. If some super volunteer wants to step up and deal with that, we definitely wouldn't reject that at all. But with available manpower, this is where we're at with it right now.
Yeah. Everyone has so many ideas, but then when we say that, well, Drive is open source, so anyone can grab the source code and hack at it however they want, and if they get something working, they can send it back to us, and then everyone is extremely quiet after being very, very enthusiastic about discussing some feature.
Yeah, it's more involved. Actually developing it than thinking about it.
Yeah, it's much faster to fill the roadmap with all kinds of dreams than anyone can work on them.
Yeah.
Actually, it's even surprised me how long it took to empty out the microbe stage roadmap, because I felt like I didn't put anything extremely crazy in there.
Yeah, I feel like with software development, you have to add a good amount of extra time for any sort of concrete deadline or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more thing to add on the contraction is that, of course, it's a different matter for macroscopic stage, the one after multicellular, where we will probably absolutely have some kind of tissue in organism that can do this, because we don't have to animate anything but cell deformation or multicellular organism deformation at that point, and we're just talking about muscles as part of a limb at that point.
Yeah, because that'd be more traditional kind of, well, it still will be procedural to some extent, because you have to put on modificate the limbs themselves, and they have to kind of create an animation. But at least that's kind of it's less geometry maybe than warping the 2D, or not 2D, but the current representation of membranes. Okay, I guess we answered 2 chat questions. Let's move back to the community forums.
I didn't put those on screen. They are now on the stream. We have the first questions from
yeah, another one of our community forums, power posters. Number 1, how are you feeling about this last stretch of time before 1.0? I feel like Harlan, and you should answer first, just because you'll be doing a lot of work rapidly for this stretch of time.
Well, I am excited about completing the microbe stage, and I'm pretty happy with there not being that much stuff on the roadmap, and most of the potentially dangerous items we can leave for later. Like they aren't critical, so I feel pretty good that I most likely will not have to do any more overtime work this year.
Good. Yeah, for me, I'm thinking about certain kind of outreach items and that sort of stuff we discussed briefly within the Discord chat and briefly on the development forums. I want to get to that, and I hope some things pan out there. That would be very cool to see. But I'm thinking of that alongside with some balancing tweaks that I'll be trying to do. I feel good. It feels amazing to be approaching the end of the first stage.
As for me, it's kind of interesting because I dropped into here quite recently, into the team at least, so it's interesting to immediately be running into a very big milestone like this,
Yeah.
which leaves me kind of scrambling to see what I can still fix and polish before that hits.
Yeah, but
But
don't
it's
feel
fun.
I guess limited to that time frame, because obviously it'd be nice to have things in before 1.0, but you know, we can continue polishing things up after that in the markup stage.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just in some way, I think what I'm trying to do is to see with 1.0, probably there will be a bigger amount of eyes coming onto the game at one point. So I think from that, I hope that Thrive can be in such a state that it can keep people's interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, number 2 from 31415. By the way, if I move on from a question, and someone else still has something to say about the prior question, do feel free to stop me or just cut over me. I won't get offended, I promise. Do you have any fears that 1.0 might, even if just barely, be delayed into 2026? I don't think so. I think if anything, a item might be, kicked off the roadmap to be completed in the first few updates of the multi-server stage. But I think we're pretty confident that, a 1.0 will be done by the end of this year.
Yeah.
Because again, even though the multi-server stage is a different stage, it's still a microscopic gameplay at the end of the day. So work there does rely on work on the micro stage, and if we feel there's something missing, naturally there would have to be some sort of rollover of that missed item. But as for a version 1.0 and our focus shifting to multi-server stage, I think we're pretty confident that by end of the year we will move on.
Yeah,
Okay.
and probably tomorrow, well, or next week, I'll start updating the roadmap status. So there's a few days left for people to check what we did before I start removing the crossed off items. So probably going to look pretty empty then. And
Yeah.
I think we agree that 1 or 2 items could be maybe completely removed or something. I need to check my notes, but I think, yeah, we can definitely make a 1.0 release this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Those are the questions from 31415. Moving on to Just a Dumb Thriver. That's a very harmful way to think of yourself. Since 1.0 is soon, how many players might it attract? I've shared this before. I don't think there will be an immediate boom in, the count of players, playing Thrive and that sort of stuff. I think it'll be more of a, slight buzz in the larger community of people who, they're following Thrive from a distance and they see, oh crap, 1.0 is done. And then I think eventually after that, there might be a new kind of, I hope at least, there'll be a new wave of Thrive playthroughs that are done saying, oh, like, the first stage of Sport Point 2.0 or whatever has been completed. And from there, hopefully that has good effects on, our financials and the community interest and that sort of stuff. So I don't think there'll be a huge immediate impact. I think it's more of a compounding thing that will just strengthen our position in the long run.
Yeah, I kind of think the same, that despite there being all kinds of plans for outreach at 1.0, I think most of those plans will just kind of sadly fail. So we'll have maybe a little bit extra outreach than the usual release, but I don't think we'll have an immediate massive boom, but of course it would feel pretty good to be lucky once in a while. Some new streamer decides to check the 1.0 release.
Yeah, our prior periods of, huge growing interest were driven by YouTube videos and streaming. And those YouTube videos did tend to kind of be released in periods where the game reached some sort of milestone or some sort of update that was pretty cool with the game. So hopefully there is something like that does get posted soon after 1.0, or at least during the development of the multi-server stage, and then from there we get in a stronger position. But I think in the long run we'll be good. It's just about making sure that we stay diligent with contributions available now and persistent with outreach currently. Okay. If anyone else has anything doesn't have anything to contribute, we went through 2 questions in the community forum, so maybe we can go through some of the chat questions. I don't know if I said this already, but thank you for collecting them, Juicy Lens. Let me see. Okay. Tabat asked, are there plans to improve Auto Evo so that it can use modifications? Rathalos has something to say about that, I think.
Assuming you're talking about like the modifications made to organelles, like the injectosome on the
I
pilots,
assume so, yeah.
those kinds of things. Well, that's being worked on right now, so
Yep.
stay tuned.
Yeah, Auto Evo is one of those things that, work there will just, universally benefit the rest of the game, no matter what else we have conceptualized, So, including more parts and modifications in Auto Evo for it to actually use things will have great effects on gameplay, diversity, and different kind of builds you see. So that was great work that Rathos is doing. Davlat Peak 2100, sorry if I butchered that, said, hi, I wanted to say I learned about you 2 years ago from the Developer Studio channel. I wanted to wish you luck and strength in developing a project. Wow, that's very kind. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's always nice to get, we are so successful because of goodwill from the community. So if we see that coming in, then we always appreciate it. Since that was not technically a question, I'll answer. We'll go through another one. Tabat also asked, I remember Quantum Crab working on the intro for Panspermia and Warm Tide Pool. Any news from them? Quantum tends to, they're not really active. They just sometimes pop in with some sort of like cool thing. So no news from them really on that. They may check in every once in a while. But
I think they've kind of disappeared, and actually someone else tried to take over one of the intro videos, and then that artist also disappears. So I think the intro video variants are becoming a cursed feature.
Yeah. Hyperbolic has tackled the plant generator, which was big cursed item number 1. And he was also proposing to use that to create some sort of basic intro for Panspermia. So that's cursed item number 2 he'd be tackling. And it's still available, so maybe he's a breaker of curses. Okay, we answered some questions from the chat. Let's move back to the community forums. Kev Core says, I ain't coming late to ask my questions. 1. It is likely wishful thinking, but I will say this one because why not? If you were to be greeted with an interview with a high-profile gaming channel or news outlet with the release of 1.0 for Thrive, specifically, and you were asked about Thrive and its future, how would you react to being allowed to have an interview or an article about the release of 1.0? What would you tell them about how far the game has come? Does it feel like something that had come across against all odds, or will it be all about function? Very interesting question. Does anyone have immediate thoughts about that, or?
Well, I think we should definitely take the opportunity and send someone talk about the game history and where we are hopefully going.
Yeah. I don't know who in general, but really any.
Well, I did already one such an interview, but I think it only got like 2,000 views on YouTube max, so it was not that influential. But I don't think my answers would have really changed what we are hoping to achieve with Drive. So of course we are now, like, I think it was a year ago or so. So we are of course much closer to micro stage completion now than then.
Yeah. I think we have more ground on the sort of claims we're making as to kind of where we want to go with the project with a 1.0 under our belt. Obviously, we want to make sure that 1.0 is very fun and very engaging, but we'd be on better grounds now for any sort of engagement, I think. As to who that would be, the biggest platform available would be preferable. I don't have any particular pickiness when it comes to that, in my opinion. But as to does it feel like it's something that has come against all odds, or will it be about function? I think if you asked, I think 2020 or 2019 community members or developers, they would say it's about, it's all against the odds. I think over the past few years with full-time development, I'm not gonna say, oh, it's absolutely granted, but the mentality now is more, if we have secure funding, we'll ensure that there's continuous progress on Thrive, and we'll get where we need to get eventually. Whereas before it was a lot more kind of a dream almost. So that is to say, with that contributions, and those contributions, we do feel pretty confident about where we can go. But the question now is ensuring that we sustain a condition that allows us to continuously develop the game. Okay. Number 2 from Kefcore. With multi-server coming up, I think it's time for a detour question. A fun question at that. Which would be your favorite Ediacaran or early Paleozoic animal up to the Silurian? Bonus points if it's an Anomalocaris. Does anyone have an answer for that?
Ooh, I do. It's an Ediacaran one is Alienum, recently described. Fish thingamajiggy.
Sorry, it's Alianium?
Alien and then UM at the end. Yes, Alienum. From the Denying Formation of China. Yes.
Huh.
Very, very funny fella.
I'm trying to look that up.
So I think I even used a 3D reconstruction I made for that as
Oh yeah,
sort of my showcase of what I can do.
No, that's a freaky thing. Yeah, no, that is insane looking.
Yeah. Let me try and put it into.
I'll post
there
one
we
photo
go.
of it. Yeah. Oh, that's
it.
I don't know what that is. That's kind of insane to look at.
Yes, it's from the Ediacaran, which is before the Cambrian, by the way, so it's even stranger in that regard.
Yeah, I like the name of. Wait, I think it's. Hold on. The name of them are kind of slipping my mind right now, but I really find it interesting. It's like the Dickinsonia, except it's rooted to the floor, and it's kind of
the
flowing. if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know which one. Yeah, China and such.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
there
yes,
we
yeah,
go.
exactly.
Yes.
Very quick. Yeah, those things I find very interesting. Yeah. Because we don't know what it is.
Ah,
But...
that was going to be my choice too.
Oh, well. Sorry to take over your
But
choice.
basically, I find them interesting because, you know, if you look at the fossil, it looks like a fern. And it's not. It's probably some kind of animal-like thing, a heterotroph. But if from the evidence, it might not even be capturing any food, just absorbing things like on a chemical level from the environment. So it's a weird thing that fits very well with weird things as would involve in Thrive, hopefully.
But yeah. No, that's why I enjoy the Ediacron overall, because it's full of weird things. There's
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
weird thing for everyone.
It's sort of like a sea pen, which live today, if you guys ever seen those animals.
I think that was one of the possible hypothesized sort of like
Yeah.
what this could be, but then they went, nah, it's
Yeah.
it's not symmetrical. On the other side, it's sort of like glided. I think it's called like glided symmetry. But one side's offset from the other, which of course makes it
Yeah.
even more strange.
Yeah, obviously sea pens, they have modern physiology, a whole history of evolution and adaptations that isn't in sea pens, but, or no, sea pens have that which isn't in these organisms, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's proceed to the next question. Oh wait, let me see okay. Abraham the Bro, very nice. 1. In comparison to your initial plan/vision for the first stage of the game, would you say that it is aligned to what the microbial stage is coming along to be? Or maybe it's better? Or have you grown to realize that your initial design was unfavorable? Does anyone have anything to say about that? Or
So at this point, do we even remember what the initial plans were?
Yeah,
That's because I wasn't even sort of around on the sort of in that space back then, so I don't know.
yeah, I think due to the way like the Thrive team evolves over time with old people leaving and new joining, like the plan is always kind of changing. So like we will only know what a stage is going to be like once it is done. It's going to not be really possible to predict what features will get designed and prioritized.
Because I'm fairly sure the terrain stuff wasn't even being thought of until I decided to join the team. At least
it was being thought of, but not with the current assets and not with the current interpretation. So and I guess like there were efforts before to get it started, but you've been the most consistent and persistent person to
so that's sort of getting it, like, you know.
Yeah, we really appreciate your contributions.
It's very good.
At least speaking personally, my personal perspective, I joined the community forums 2018. I think it definitely is a completely different vision, I guess, compared to what I was envisioning as a younger person who was, I'm not gonna say more starry-eyed, but was more like, oh, we can transform the game dramatically. I was thinking more in terms of the different shapes and parts and functions that will be represented in Thrive, as opposed to our current focus on the simulation, the environment, and that sort of stuff. My interpretation of the microbe stage, it's gone from something that is more kind of huge and ginormous and all-encompassing to something that is in the context of future stages of Thrive, where I think the microbe stage represents a very unstable and fluctuating period of your planet's history, and life's first attempts to establish itself in this instability. So there has been some change in mind, yeah. I don't know if anyone else has any sort of personal thoughts like that about what they thought Thrive would be. Okay, I'll move on to question number 2 from Abraham the Bro. Do you plan to attract more players in some way or another, or let the community keep growing naturally? Well, the first thing I'll say is that we would really appreciate any sort of volunteer who contributes to the outreach of Thrive, because if we have someone there, we'd have a more consistent effort towards a strategy, towards creating, an outreach strategy. I do think the majority of the growth will continue to be, hope for, YouTubers and streamers to occasionally play through Thrive and then ride the waves of interest generated from that. But there are some plans we have right now in regards to potential outreach items before 1.0 that we can do. Whether or not they'll be fulfilled is up to the manpower available, but we do have some sort of discussions which are visible in the development forums actually. So okay, if no one else has anything to contribute, we answered 2 questions in the community, so maybe we can just answer a few questions from the chat. Juzelens shows another question. I Now Thrive has a question that they think HH will be better answering. Having a bit of a problem with the performance and the long time in the loading screen in this new update, that could affect the videos I do of the game, even reducing all the things in config.
Well, this is a thing that's been reported since the last release when we got the loading screen, and well, as far as I can tell, just some computers are extremely slow at loading the graphics shaders. Well, I don't think we can do much. There is the new shader baking option, Godot export settings, which might do something, but I don't really know what we can do. And anyway, I think it should take the same amount of time to compile and load the graphics in the loading screen as in the game. So if we skip the loading screen, then those same people who get really long loading screens, they should be getting extremely long lag spikes during the gameplay, which I think would be quite infinitely worse. So yeah, I think we would need to get information from the people who get those long loading screens, like what hardware do they have, what operating system versions, etc. So we could try to start piecing together what causes it. And for example, on my Mac Mini test computer, it takes extra 10 seconds compared to my Windows test computer for the shader compile. So yeah, well, I think some computers are just slow at initial loading of the graphics, and thus sadly need to wait longer in the loading screens.
Yeah, in general, if you do have performance issues with the game, then the best thing for that would be just sharing specs, and if it's some sort of bug, sharing that on either the community forums or community Discord. There we can kind of understand if it's related to prior issues or
yeah,
a software or hardware issue,
or if there's some like it could be feasible that there's some kind of bug in the loading code that, for example, if you have selected a specific number of background threads, that might cause something. So, like, yeah, we need more information, like the specs you have and what performance settings in Drive you are using.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Tabat asks another one. What scares you the most about future development? How to make Auto Evo create beautiful / normal creatures, procedural animations for animals, hell without a graphics programmer, tech editor or something. Well, we'll ask the programmer here what they're most scared of, because they're the one who'll be doing most of the work there. So
I think the only real thing that could be a showstopper would be creating procedural animations for the macroscopic creatures from the convolution surfaces. And of course, Auto Evo also scares me a bit that it might get either really, really slow, or it might make really boring creatures, or it might make really horrifying results in macroscopic.
yeah, after the, not saying it's the accepted and canon concept of, Thrive development team right now, but after kind of having a big dive into the macroscopic editor concept I had, I feel more confident about us representing some form of an editor that can, adequately represent a lot of diverse builds in an intuitive way to the player. But I agree with Harlan in saying that I think procedural animation is what we have the least answers for right now. We just have very little movement there, and I think we don't have many people on the team who, are specialized or very knowledgeable of that sort of stuff. I do think it can be done if we think about how limbs work and how we present different controls to the player, but that mainly sticks out in my mind.
What scares me personally is the potential of having Auto Evo create enough of a diversity of a number of different species to fit into the world and make things look interesting. Whether that's makes Auto Evo run so long that it's not practical anymore to run while you're playing. But I will have to see how that ends up in the future.
Yeah, I think with that we can discuss, because the world would be much larger in the macroscopic stage, perhaps having Auto Evo be more in depth, or like be more intensive in local areas as opposed to areas across the globe might be one way we can manage that, perhaps. But yeah, beyond that, I think it's something we'll have to kind of tackle when we get there and with the manpower we have. At the end of the day, we can also perhaps sacrifice some detail in the simulation if it really comes to that sort of, decision. But, I'd say procedural animation and Auto Evo are the two big boogeymen, almost. Okay, cool. Let's go back to the community questions now. Anthropocenian Age asks, what ideas not yet listed on the dev release roadmap wiki page do you think should be implemented for enhancing the game for full release, such as adding the nematocyst? Well, I think the value of the roadmap is we have a stopping point within it, because we can always add more to improve things, and we can never be, we could easily never be satisfied with what we have. So as to amending the roadmap itself, I think that's out of the picture. But in terms of what is missing from the stage, I think there could be a more, lively and balanced discussion there. I think the biggest thing is just, for me, that sticks out is we could potentially do better in, simulating the world and kind of the, way that the world changes and stuff. because that's such a big theme of this microbe stage. But it's nothing kind of, requiring a huge remake or a huge new feature. It's just optimization, a lot of it, and then perhaps some more detailed handling.
Yeah, I don't think we should add any real new features to the roadmap. Just try to tweak what we already have, and of course it came up that we might need some graphics presets and more graphics options for low-end devices. So I think those are kind of the biggest new features kind of are still should be done before the end of micro that aren't on the roadmap yet.
Yeah. Question number 2 from Anthropocenian Age. What are the plans for new graphics effects being added to the game going forward? And will some of those planned graphic effects be disabled for high performance? Well, kind of fitting into what we just discussed with the presets. There are definitely different areas we've brought up, but with graphics in particular, the question is who can get to it and when can it be done? Because we don't always have availability of graphics artists at specific times, so the time frame for implementing these things can be longer and more inconsistent than the time frame for implementing larger features. But some consistent themes include larger 3D objects in the background, altering the lighting effects, having visual changes based on what is living in the patch, that sort of stuff, which requires pretty extensive handling.
Specifically for the graphics effects, I think only Deleter would know, because Deleter has a track record of showing up and dropping a new graphics effect on the game. And Deleter is basically the only active graphics programmer we have, so basically nothing is planned because we won't know when it happen.
Yeah, Doger is pretty, is very helpful, and he can be pretty consistent in terms of, effort put in. But, they're a volunteer, and we can't, assure that they'll be doing something specific at a time, because we want them to feel comfortable and implementing whatever they wish. That's a big part of the way that work works in this project. So. Okay. Moving on to the next questions from Eman Productions. 1. Have you already decided on how bioluminescent vacuoles will work? 1.0 is coming soon, so you really need to polish everything up, There's a concept for bioluminescent vacuoles on the forums. It generally involves having some sort of effect, in certain proximity to other members of your cell. But as to binding that to the roadmap, I'm not sure how easy such a feature is to create, so I don't want to delay that.
I think that sadly the bioluminescent vacuole is not likely to get any updates before the 1.0.
Yeah.
Because the only reason it got implemented is that it was put on the roadmap because it's been in the list of our organelles since at least 2015. So I decided that if no one has worked on it in a decade, I need to at least put it into the game. So I did. But now I think I'll have so much other stuff to work on that I cannot take time to making additional effects for it.
Yeah, I think it's a prime candidate for rolling forward, some sort of effort to improve it in the next stage development, if we have the rolling forward section of that roadmap.
Well, I kind of think that it might get totally neglected people will always every now and then ask how that one thing doing, and all of the bioluminescent people fans will be really quiet when I ask that who is going to implement the feeds.
Yeah. Currently, it just relates to oxygen tolerance, and the way oxygen tolerance works now is it's pretty, broad and inexpensive to maintain. So it could have more relevance if that is tweaked or polished, but as of now, there's no plan to bind it to the 1.0 roadmap.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, indeed, I would say the most likely thing to happen is there will be some tweak to costs of on the tolerance bars or sliders at some point. And if that's the case, the bioluminescent vacuole might be a more effective way to tolerate the oxygen in some circumstances. Which, in my opinion, would also be mostly sufficient because, to be honest, our understanding of what the function is of bioluminescence on microorganisms is kind of vague in real life. So,
Absolutely.
but this is also one good example of an organelle that has one simple function in the microbe stage, but in the macroscopic stage could have larger and more complicated effects, which still keeps that link intact.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, that is a good point, actually. That could be a feature that, it might not be immediately useful in the microbe stage, but it could have, if you have it placed down when you become multicellular, it could, or when you become more macroscopic, it could become more influential or beneficial in a way. But yeah, overall, we probably won't bind that to the 1.0 roadmap. Okay. Question number 2 from Man Productions. How do you plan on getting more audience for this project? Well, we've discussed before that big booms tend to happen around when new videos and playthroughs of Thrive are posted, or streaming of Thrive is posted. And we anticipate that 1.0, if news of 1.0 spreads out, that could have some sort of smaller effect on the larger community as a whole, which could eventually hopefully lead to more of a, someone in YouTube or Twitch or other live streaming venues being like, oh wow, this game reached a milestone, let me play it. So hopefully something like that happens. I think if we're too kind of aggressive with marketing the game, we run the risk of kind of burning goodwill with a larger audience. If we're being too, aggressive, persistent, spammy with our promotions. So we have to be kind of more, and obviously our manpower. So we have to be more concise with what we do. But overall, I think it's something that we can manage, trying to hope for larger media attention and playthrough attention to Thrive.
I think that ultimately, if we somehow got a somewhat active outreach person who like at least emailed like a few streamers per week who like play kind of similar games to Thrive, like that would have like really very disproportionate effect based on how much effort that one person would need to put in.
Yeah.
Because we don't have anyone who is actively trying to find an audience for Thrive. And something like making a couple of weekly biology memes based on Thrive or something and posting them on some socials, and maybe like trying to make a few somewhat funny like TikToks each week. Like if we had like a bit of money to like hire an outreach person like for like 4 to 5 hours per week, they did those activities like reaching out and making some fun content about Thrive. try to get traction somewhere. I think like that would have pretty good impact in growing like the fan base steadily over time.
That'd be high ROI. I think shorts too, YouTube shorts and that sort of stuff, that'd be very useful ways of, because at least in my personal experience, if I see a new sort of indie game, it tends to be through YouTube shorts and that sort of venue. So if someone out there has media experience or social media experience, and they wish to help contribute to Thrive, send an application. Maybe we'll be impressed with your qualifications and we'll feel confident that you can be, that person. With outreach, one thing to keep in, I think that would be very useful, Drizzlens. With outreach, one thing is that, we obviously expect a baseline amount of courtesy and respect and professionalism because, you're representing our game to an outside audience or an outside, venue. So we would have that expectation. But beyond that, applications are open for a team member like that.
Yeah, and maybe in the future, if the project's financial situation improves, that's an outreach person or like a part-time outreach position would be the first next hired person I think we should get, because they could then help basically fund the game if the outreach is successful. Like they would pay for themselves and also other future team members. The outreach goes well.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, cool. Let me see if there's any chat questions. Looks like Tabat asks, will there be any remake for gameplay of every Thrive release to 1.0? We contacted our trailer maker currently, see if they would be open to that. They said they would be, but we don't want to, I don't think they gave a specific deadline or shared any progress related to that, but that would be very cool to see for sure, but it depends on manpower.
Yeah, everyone always again asks that when we make a remake of that video, but actually one person offered to like record all the footage, but I think their like hard drive broke or something and they couldn't play most of the 0.4.x versions, so it was unfortunately not very successful attempt. So I mean, if someone can record footage of all of the releases, our trailer guy said that he would be able to like edit it together.
Oh yeah.
Like, quite easily.
Maybe I can contribute to that, but we'll see. Okay. Cool. All right.
I mean, that could also be a YouTube short, like call it like evolution of a game, and then like do 30-second time lapse of like all the Thrive releases.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, cool. Another question people keep asking is, will the radiation rocks be engulfable? They are not engulfable right now.
This kills the cell.
You said what?
This kills the cell.
Yes, this kills the cell, and it will kill you if you tried it. So don't try it. It won't work. Cool. Okay. Looks like there's no more chat questions, so we'll go back to the community forums. Animalia asks, how do you feel about finally seeing the near end of the microbial stage? Very good. I think, again, like we said, it's big news for the project, but personally it's very good. It's also kind of weird because, thinking about a stage other than the microbe stage and having that thought be potentially turned into mechanics would be really, really kind of a new feeling to get used to. But overall, it's really good for the project, and I'm really proud of how far we've come. I don't know how everyone else feels about approaching 1.0.
I think I said earlier how my personal experience with it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's as you said, sort of like crazy. We're even sort of like we've managed to actually reach this point now.
Yeah,
Starting to look
absolutely.
ahead into the other stages. Like, obviously for me, it's like, what sort of new models are we going to be able to make for the multicellular stage as such, and beyond. Yeah. Very good.
We'll probably there'll probably be a few new cell parts just to like take advantage of new multicellular abilities. So that might be something that we
Yeah.
can work on. Cool. Okay. Number 2, how will this achievement affect the rest of Thrive's development, besides the obvious of moving on to the next stages? Well, we brought this up before. If we complete one stage, it makes kind of our, one, it kind of rebukes the, I guess, common taboo around Thrive of, it will never get out of the microbe stage. 2, it makes things a lot more legitimate moving forward. This team was able to achieve the completion of 1.0 in the first stage. We can move on to the next, bigger things. So, I think ultimately, and also a lot of people really put in a lot of effort for reaching 1.0. So that would be really meaningful for many community members. I think as to, capabilities of the team, that revolves largely around the community response and how it grows a community. But, going forward, if 1.0 really brings in a lot of attention and effort, then that would be only beneficial to the development of Thrive. Okay. Moving on. Skio0927 asks, could a 0.10.0 release happen? No.
Well, theoretically possible with the version numbers, but we are so close that we won't need that many small releases before the 1.0, so yeah.
No, yeah. We're not going to release 10 updates, I think, in an 8-week span, so no worries about that. Okay, I'll do one more question for community forums, since that was a shorter one. Handy asks, how is finance doing for the project?
I guess I'm the right person to answer this because I just today, or was it? No, wait, yeah, I think it was last week when I was making the meta build. I checked the latest numbers, and actually, surprisingly, in the past month, like the Steam units sold has gone up, like I think it was 15 or 20% up, and that kind of surprised me because I have no clue what could have caused that. That level is almost like pretty close to like break even for us, but like the past few months have been worse than that. So I think we are still in the like 20 to 30% missing funding each month.
And since Thrive is a non-profit, there doesn't need to be, an excess revenue for it. Non-profit finance works differently than for-profit finance. But we do want to target near break-even.
Yeah, because well, while we got quite a good bank balance from the initial Steam sales that has been going down for the past 2.5 years, though slowly initially, but a bit faster during the months when the sales have been really slow. So like we are slowly running out of money because each month we are a bit in the negative. So it would be nice for a change to build the bank balance up a bit more so that we have a safety buffer again.
Yeah. Which is why things like streams and videos, they're very useful for the project because, because we can go below break even as long as we have those influxes of excess funds. And if we have those big periods of, growth and sales driven by videos and Twitch streams, then we really strengthen the pillow we have under us for development. So I guess,
but,
yeah,
but those don't result in very stable income. It's very spiky.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So overall,
I think that answers the second question as well from that person.
Yeah, there you go. So I think overall, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not in a dire situation, but there are negative trends that we are concerned about, and we want to make sure we have an answer for.
Not yet, but like basically, if situation keeps about the same, then we can probably just about finish the multicellular stage, and then we'll need to say that we are out of money and we need to drop development speed by like 90%, I'd say.
Yeah. Which would suck for everyone. So if you can contribute to the Patreon or, again, create promotional activity, that would be really, really helpful for the future of Thrive. Okay. Do we have any questions from the chat that leaked in, or should we continue through the community forum questions?
There was at least some discussion in the chat about something.
Don't see much right now.
Well, there was one question about like how cells share compounds in multicellular, and well, I guess the answer is pretty simple, that they evenly share all compounds they have except ATP, because it's a very special case where ATP would be shared between cells, so that's not the default in Thrive.
Yeah. Oh, see you, Rafalos, by the way. Great to have you on the stream.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeet, farewell.
Cool. Okay. I guess we're approaching our 2 hours, so I guess we just focus on the community forum questions for now.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get through everything. We still have, I think, four people left.
Okay.
Who asked questions?
Cast96 says, when might the roadmap for multicellular eventually come out? I will say for the first few updates, we probably want to, one, feel out the concepts, and two, see how long it will take to, work on those different.
I think we'll have a rough roadmap in like maybe February or March after the first multicellular release.
Yeah. I think the general picture I anticipate, though, is the first few phases of the development will be, polishing things, the binding agents, how, make sure everything is fine for the multicellular colonies, that sort of stuff. The second phase will be, adding the new multicellular features, which won't be much, but they'll be, significant in influence. And 3 would be, optimization and making sure everything fits well with the microbe stage. Okay. Number 2 from Cast96 is, what was everyone's favorite thing about the markup stage since it's almost finished now? I always enjoy welcoming new developers to the team. I think there's like I guess like there's different development teams for different areas of Thrive. And I think I joined around when there was kind of a turnover of like the older generation of developers, I think, if that makes sense. And luckily we have a lot of people from around when I joined that are consistently with the project, though unfortunately some people have left, but I always enjoy welcoming new members to the team.
I think for me, I might pick like the compound clouds as my favorite feature because like it basically never has had any bugs in it. Or like at least since I joined it, the system has been so good. And it gives Thrive like quite specific identity because the game, like the core gameplay of just going around and absorbing these clouds and they disappear. I think that has quite a lot of appeal. And it's been like very light on maintenance burden and needing to make changes to it. Of course, it kind of wrecks low-end CPUs, but yeah, well, I think almost every other single micro stage feature has had at least some hard to figure out game breaking bugs in them, so that's why Compound Clouds gets my vote.
One other thing I also like, at least I have a soft spot for is endosymbiosis, because that was, I think, like the first like big concept I kind of like really helped create that really ended up being in the game. So it was cool to see something that I helped create be implemented into the game as its own distinct feature. Okay. Moving on to Tabat's forum questions. No financial improvements yet. Well, we just discussed there was a bit of improvement of the past few months, but over the summer there were less sales than we would have liked.
Yeah.
Number 2, most in the community is thinking about 1.0, but how many releases do you think there will be for the 9.x versions? Do we want to say like 3 or something?
I think we already kind of answered. I was personally betting that 2 releases and then 1.0.
Yeah. I think that's a good approach to it. So a release for every month and then 1.0.
Well, a release for every 2 or 3 weeks with that pace. So it'll be basically just as fast as like I can take care of some of the remaining roadmap items and the game design team can finish game balancing thing.
Yep.
Asking for more feedback. What else? Still doesn't feel exactly super dialed in correctly. The micro stage.
Yep. So about 2 releases and then 1.0 is probably the best bet. The final question, it looks like from Erika. How much will the cell structure affect the later stage of the game after multicellular? It will have, we can expect a good effect from it, since we were wanting to tie into the micro stage. We want to make sure that you're not doomed to a certain path just based off things that you might not be aware of in the micro stage going forward. But we do want there to be some pretty decent connection between the 2 stages, since it's one big playthrough. So
I personally see this question in like 2 different ways. One is that like how much like the stuff in the cell affect the stage, and I think that's going to be very high because I really hope that we can reuse the cell editor for configuring tissue types, etc. So it will be very impactful, but like the actual like shape and structure of the cell types, well, I would see that as less important.
Yeah.
Later in the game, because it would get really annoying if you have made like the correct cell type for your brain, but the shape is so that it's like 5% too inefficient for your liking or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I would kind of see like the cell structure losing importance.
Yeah, I agree. We do want there to be some sort of, little area where you can edit some sort of cell in your larger organism, but it's a question of how that will be implemented and how that will influence the rest of the structure. Drizzlens mentions we also plan on having past editors still usable in future stages, correct? Yeah, to the extent that it makes sense for the stage, because if what's in the cell or if what's in the microbe editor does not line up with what's possible in the macroscopic stage, then how well can that segue over to the macroscopic stage? Okay, well, that's our community forums questions. So the rest of this stream will be just, I assume, will be Harleen and playing to Thrive with cheats enabled.
Well, we could theoretically end in just a few minutes because we are almost at the 2-hour mark. Because
yeah, you're right.
While the number of questions wasn't overwhelming this time, it once again was enough to fill basically a 2-hour stream. I think maybe some people in the chat will take the opportunity to ask some final questions. Like I see there was a question picked out from Tabata asking about the association report coming in April. So assuming I got the question right, is that that's like the year-end report for the general meeting of the association for the next year, and that's basically going to be completed around April or May, depending on the date we will select for the meeting.
Does anyone have any other questions in the chat?
Very, very rare chance to jump ahead of any question queues. And
Frizz says, I guess genetic engineering won't be a thing in space stage. Sounds like too much work. Well, we don't know anything about the space stage at this point, beyond the general framework. So we can't say if it would be too much work because we don't know where it would fit in. But it would definitely be, I anticipate being a tech tree item that lets you kind of use different technologies and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, this has come up before, that like we should have some kind of technology about genetic engineering, because like once you reach like society stage or we advance a bit in it, then you'll basically be locked out of the editors, mostly because the timescales are going to be really short. So it would kind of make it like interesting or more symmetric to like at genetic engineering as a technology for the space stage, so that you could like unlock the editors again, make changes like you did in the earlier stages. I think that would be pretty nice, and because we already have all of the like the editors existing, and of course for the ascension stage we already need to allow modifying species, then I think it would be pretty low effort feature to add, and it add a lot of like thematic uniformity to Thrive, so that you can like there would be just a few parts of the game where you cannot edit species with the editing tools. So I would see it as a quite likely feature to be.
Quantum
see-
Crab just showed up in the chat.
Yeah, we have Quantum Crab in the chat.
That's gonna
Awaken it.
We were just talking about you. We were saying very bad things about you.
say. Yeah. it's just
It's good. Well, if you're still here, we were planning to sort of reach out to former developers as 1.0 was released, just to, you know, not to ask for anything, but if they want to see how far Thrive has gone in the time since they worked on the game, you know. We'd love to have you share thoughts, and, you know, if you want to share thoughts and disappear, that's good. But beyond that, might be a cool thing for us to do. We'll also beg for that intro animation.
If no one else shows up, I guess we'll need to ask Untrusted Life to come back on the podcast, because I think he has been at least once on the podcast since he kind of like left the team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's a Juzulen's pumpkin, very festive for Halloween.
Oh yes.
That is very cool that he got that, because pumpkin carving isn't very easy. So
I was gonna
job
say
on
that
that.
looks very good.
This could actually also work as like a pretty fun thumbnail for the live stream.
Thrive pumpkin.
Yeah,
Thrive
yeah.
pumpkin, yes.
Usually these streams don't have custom thumbnails, but Thrive Pumpkin would be quite topical.
Oh yeah. That would be a cool thumbnail.
Thrive pumpkin. Yes, that would be good.
Okay, we are almost at the 2-hour mark, so do we have any last minute things to say on stream? Any questions or anything?
Well, I will say, you know, it's always a pleasure to have people tune in, especially as we, you know, the appreciation we receive from the community is really heartwarming, especially as we begin to approach a major milestone for this project. So
Yeah.
we always really appreciate engaging with the community, and we appreciate any feedback, any questions, even different suggestions, even if those suggestions are always the same thing sometimes. So
Well,
we always really appreciate
yeah.
you guys being here.
There's been a few pretty major suggestions recently where someone suggested like 5 things in one post, and 3 of those were major reworks of the game. So, well, not all suggestions are as easy to implement as others. Actually, I see we have forgotten to let everyone know that as Thrive is an open source project, anyone can join and make changes, and if you have the game dev skills, you can help us make Thrive. And of course, if you just tell your friends about Thrive, or maybe your favorite streamer, if their content is kind of compatible with Thrive, that would also help.
Yep, and as always, we have a Patreon that you can contribute to if you wish to provide contributions to Thrive on a monthly basis. And we have a Steam page that lets you contribute to development by purchasing Thrive. So if you wish to help support future development, we would really appreciate that.
Yeah, there's many ways to do so.
Absolutely. But I guess we can sign off now. It's 2:01. at least in my time.
Yeah, we've passed exactly 2 hours on the stream clock, so thanks everyone for tuning in and all the developers who joined to talk about stuff. Thank you. And well, I guess it's time to say bye, and I will end the
Yes,
stream.
it is.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thank you very much.
See you next time, guys, for 1.0.
Yes.
time.
Ooh.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.